Yeah.
Oh.
Go.
So what?
What?
I said it normal. The fourth floor. Not. I was real hyped up for this movie, and it was not at all how I thought it was going to be.
Oh.
Because it was so weird in the beginning, like the weird TV shit and the devil, and he's signing the contract with the devil. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
In fact, it's almost unnatural how accurate this man has been about the weather. It's made us wonder.
And then that just doesn't happen. And I was like, what? That had such little to do with the actual movie that I was like,
turns out it's just to
what?
make you
Yeah.
question his
Yeah.
motives. I liked it.
I didn't dislike it. I'm just saying I hyped myself up for
Right.
it in a way that I shouldn't have.
Well,
So I hated it. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I think it was a little bit it was a little annoying sometimes. Like some of the ways that she would just instantly call the police and be like, I'm not crazy. I'm like,
yeah.
I get it. I know what we're doing. We don't have to
Go
you don't
that
have
hard.
to say it out loud. Like
Right,
you don't have to
right.
say the thing out loud. We're
Show,
not
don't tell.
We're not doubting that she's crazy. Like
Right,
you
I
don't
know,
have to
right.
keep saying that. Like we're not the ones
Yeah,
doubting
right.
that. Like whatever. Anyway,
Yeah, I agree.
that was the frustrating part.
Yeah.
where she would just go to 11 anytime someone was like, "Huh, that's interesting." She'd be like, "No, I'm not crazy." I'm like, "Okay, come."
Yeah, it undermined.
Yeah.
It made her less sympathetic. I
Yeah. I think that was a little bit intentional because I think
Yeah.
they actually a little bit
Wanted
wanted
you
you
to-
to question, but I'm like, you're not doing anything that makes me question. Like, what you would
Yeah.
have to like retell the whole story for me to be like, oh, it was all in her head. That's crazy because
Right.
it wasn't. What was I going to say? But I was thinking this morning, I was like, yeah, it's an interesting sort of, especially for like 1999. I'm like, yeah, they're giving the whole kind of like rear window sort of like thing. And it's a woman living by herself, doing all this on her own and sort of being her own, advocate. And so that was like an interesting sort of, I'm like, yeah, for it being 1999, this wasn't too unbelievable or, it probably at the time was a little bit, I don't want to say groundbreaking, but like not, it probably hadn't been done as much as it has now.
Well, and I mean the ending, it would be debatable, but I guess, but you're on her side for
Yeah.
the most part,
Yeah.
rather than it being like, for instance, you're on William Hurt's side.
Right.
Which, if Michael Douglas had been in this movie, he would have been the victim
Yeah.
at this time in the 90s.
The trivia for this movie,
It was a good one. I didn't catch that.
I didn't catch it either. The downstairs neighbor, or the person that supposedly lives underneath on the fourth floor,
Yeah.
is they say her first name, like one of the tenants refer to her as Alice, and then when like at the grocery store they say or the corner store or whatever, they
Yeah, the guy
say,
calls her.
"Oh yeah, Miss Cooper lives there. We used to deliver groceries to her." I didn't catch that that means her name's Alice Cooper. And Shelley Duvall plays Martha Stewart.
Jane, my name's Martha Stewart. Not the famous one, though.
I liked
Finally, a movie that I like
right.
in this set.
Yeah.
With Shelley Duvall.
Yeah.
And I liked her performance.
I was gonna say I liked
casting all
I
around,
liked
I felt
what
like.
she did. I thought it was
Yeah.
I liked that, you know, especially considering how it ended. You
Yeah.
don't actually know
Yeah.
if she's being kooky, like if she's being particular about him, or if he's lying to her about what.
Who's him?
Austin Pendleton.
Pendleton. What's
Because
his character name? Fuck.
yeah,
Sorry, go on.
because he always runs into Jane.
Emlyn.
He always runs into Jane, and he's always really sweet. And then Martha Stewart is like, I told you to
Collins.
stop. I told you to stop like pestering him.
Yeah.
He keeps complaining about how much you're like
Right.
aggravating him and like knocking on his door and how you won't go away and stuff like that. And you're like, and she doesn't ever, the interesting thing is she never says, I'm not doing that. She never refutes any of it.
Uh-huh.
She's just like, okay, whatever. So that's actually kind of, you're like, wait, why? Because I was like, why aren't you saying you don't do that? Why aren't you saying like, is that what he's
Yeah.
saying? Like, you don't ask any questions. You're just like, okay, sure. Like, but then, you know, you think that, you know, Shelley Duvall is just being a bitch,
Right.
you know, and it turns out you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. But yeah, I think there's like it's kind of funny in how you definitely so the movie is the plot it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
The plot is pretty straightforward. It's just that Juliette Lewis plays this character named Jane who's in a relationship with William Hurt's character who's a local weatherman. And they were planning to move in together, but her aunt died, and it brought an apartment. Like she has like a rent controlled apartment, and it's like a fucking bomb ass apartment. I'd love to live there. And so she is like, I'm gonna live here instead, and he gets really upset about it, and he keeps trying to convince her not to. And then all kinds of weird shit starts like her neighbor, like
Yeah, but also we open on this ad for him.
right, yeah, he's like going from local to national weather, and it's like like it's literally the ad for him. Like
He's so good at a weather as being
he signed a contract with the fucking devil because he'll do anything to get the job done, and so he's doing a national weather. And I'm like, what? That's why I was like, what the fuck is this movie?
Yeah.
So that's how it starts, and so you're like, 100%. You're like, okay, yeah, he's the one. Even though like in real life, he's just like kind of seems a little bit like boring.
To it, I'm getting the sense you didn't like the commercial.
What makes you think that?
Because you haven't said a word about it, which is not like you.
Well,
Come on out with it. I can take it. I can take the truth. Tell me what the younger generation thinks.
I thought it made you look a little evil.
well,
The
he's
message.
You know?
sociopathic at moments.
Well, I think he seems a little conceited, but like not even enough of a character to be sociopathic because he's just like so milquetoast.
Well, like, he seems abusive, emotionally abusive. I mean, like his shit, like he flies off the handle about stupid shit.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, even when he's like flying off the handle, it's pretty tame. Like,
Okay.
he's not, you know, that's sort of what I mean. Like, it's a pretty even tempered. You're like, And I assume that he's doing that on purpose. Like, I didn't assume that I assumed he was like not like things weren't actually getting to him. He was just like picking a fight, and at a time when he knew that. So because he wants her to move, so then all these
Right.
fucked up things start happening. So like
in her building.
Yeah, so she gets like a letter that's saying like not to make noise.
She gets a couple warnings.
No, she gets a thing that's like, don't make, like, you shouldn't, you need to be quiet. You've been warned or whatever. Don't let this turn into an altercation or something like that.
Right.
And so she assumes it's the person below her. And she's like, well, I was moving furniture late or whatever. She's like, so I guess I pissed them off. So she's like, I'll try to, not do that. And then no matter what she's doing, she ends up pissing them off. They're like, you were making noise late at night. And then they send her this like contract kind of thing that's like, you're not allowed to make any noise. You're not allowed to talk. You're only allowed to move furniture between 1 p.m. and 1:15 p.m. Like, it was like crazy shit. Like,
you should take your shoes
you
off.
have to take your shoes off. You're not allowed to walk on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, all kinds of shit. It's like
Insane.
real. Yeah. Like, that's not, and it's not
Beyond.
coming from her landlord. It's coming from, it's just like someone typed this up. And so she's getting pissed. So then she starts acting out and starts making extra noise because she's like, fuck you. And then shit starts happening. Like, there's they said maggots, but I don't. Are those maggots? Because I think maggots are little tiny. Are those actually maggots?
Yeah, they were.
Those are like
grubs
mealworms or something.
Yeah, you're probably right.
So they're like coming out of her. Hang on, yeah, I'm gonna.
Bathtub drain.
Yeah, and then
There's flies. One day, suddenly, there's a bunch of mice.
let's see what's a mealworm. Yeah, it's a mealworm. It's a mealworm.
Tube grubs.
Your mother doesn't chew your food. So, yeah. So she wakes up one morning and her tub's like covered in mealworms, and then she leaves her like bathroom and her apartment is covered in mice. And then the pest control guy is like, yeah, someone literally fed this up through. He's like, you don't have, like, this isn't
What's
a
that guy's
natural
name?
occurrence. He was like, there's literally like
I love these holds up the glue trap with like
horrible
18 baby mice on them that are still squirming.
alive. Oh my god. And he's like saying how there's like an albino.
The exterminator is played by Robert Costanzo,
Yeah, he's
not George Costanza.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I didn't know his name, but he's instantly recognizable.
Yeah,
you've seen him in a million things.
You've seen him in
And he's
everything you've
perfect.
ever seen.
Perfect
him.
cast.
Yeah. And yeah, he was a really I expected him to be like. I was like, oh, they're casting him. He's going to be like, oh, I was looking through your peony drawer or something. And he was just like,
Or just blame her like everybody else.
You're a real nasty bitch, something. Or like, yeah, just ask her for something, for free if she, gives him a hand job or something.
Yeah, right.
But no, he was just
actually
like, he was like,
one of the turning points.
yeah, he's like, yeah, someone's doing this on purpose. He's like,
Yeah.
this is not.
There's a hole in the floor.
Yeah, he's like, this is how it happened, all this shit. The only thing I didn't like is when the floor was covered up. I'm like,
How you fix that hole?
how did you fix that? And you don't explain that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
I
that was
get
a
it.
little bit of a.
That was one that I was like, don't like this. I don't like it. Because it's like if it had been like the whole thing underneath it had been like taken off and like it was like vinyl or something. Because they drove a hole through the wood floor,
Right,
and then magically the wood floor has no.
It's not patched. It's
Yeah,
just completely
it's just,
gone.
yeah, and I'm like,
there's no trace.
I don't
know.
like that.
Yeah. That one was
Yeah, that one.
a little hard to swallow.
That one, yeah, I was like, this one's too much for me. This one's too far. This one took it too far. So anyway, whatever. Yeah,
And she eventually breaks into.
Yeah, I liked that when she I
breaks
liked
into
that
it.
because of two reasons. At first, I was like, this is annoying because she's breaking and entering into someone's place, and then she's gonna like admit to breaking and entering. But I
Right.
was like, okay, whatever. Like, admitting to breaking and entering means that it's big deal if there's like a dead body there or something. Then either way, like, even if she gets in trouble, like, they figured it out. It's not her imagination, so whatever.
Yeah.
But after she comes back up, like, how she breaks into their house is she climbs down the fire escape and just crawls in an open window. So,
Right.
like, I mean, I'm not saying it's not breaking and entering.
It's not breaking.
Well, it's not breaking, yeah. It's like, you know.
It's entering.
Yeah. it's unlawful entry. But, you know.
For unlawful carnal knowledge.
But when she's in there, she sees all this shit. Like, they have all these mice in the apartment.
In cages.
Yeah, in, like, very clearly, you know. And then there's, like.
I think I cut you off before you were about to say the exterminator was like, here's an albino mouse.
Oh, yeah. These are
bred for people, and then they're sold.
Yeah, he's like, they're used in laboratories.
Right.
He's like, you don't find them in the wild. He's like, this is not an accident. Like, he's like, this is not like something that would just show up in your apartment.
Right.
So that, I think that's when she decided, and he's like, someone below you. He's like, your neighbor. He's like, your neighbor's doing this. Basically, that's what he says. And
the maggots were because
the pipe, something was dead in the pipes.
Yeah.
And so she goes and right. She's like, goes and looks because she's like, there has to be fucking something going on because this is like insane. And before that happened, she signs a card.
Oh, yeah.
That says, like, she just, like, basically says, like, truce. And she's like, I'm sorry. And she gives them a card. And then when she goes into their apartment, like, there's all this shit. There's, like, what is it? Polycule or whatever is written on the wall.
Portcullis.
And
Portcullis. I'm looking it up. In fact.
and she's like, what the fuck is that? And she, like, takes a picture of it. And it's with a Polaroid camera because it's 1999, y'all. I guess digital cameras didn't exist back then. And
Well, they did, but they were.
I know, yeah,
I know. Had to accept a floppy disk.
Right. I mean, I guess it makes sense that they had to accept the floppy disk.
I'm not kidding. Those early Sony Mavicas, they're like this big because you had to put a.
Oh my God.
I had one for a minute because I got it because it was busted. Like the view screen was busted.
Nice.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
You're fine. So yeah, she's taking Polaroids, and she ends up noticing that on the ceiling is her apartment layout is drawn, like where she has her couch, where she had like every single part of her apartment, like where her rug is, like all this shit is drawn on the ceiling. So that means that someone's like,
and holes drilled in
and
at
like
various points.
where, because there's like, at one point they were like, this is another part where I was like, no. When she's in the kitchen and they start hitting the tiles.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I don't think people know that like there's a lot of room between the ceiling of the apartment below you and the floor of the
For
apartment.
instance, pipes have to run through there.
Exactly. Like, there's not, yeah. So, like, that was the part where I was like,
Yeah.
And I would have been like, okay, it's believable if they have, like, stripped that down.
Right.
And they're,
But
like,
we've seen that.
but then on there, you just see where they hit their ceiling and it broke the tiles in the apartment above. No, it didn't. That was too far for me.
Well, it's probably your pipes.
Yeah. I mean, I believe that. I was like, well, the only thing that made me, I'm like, I'm not trying to say that, yes, cops are notorious for gaslighting women. And it wouldn't, like, literally, you can have a restraining order and you can be like, the person I have a restraining order against is at my front door. And they'll be like, okay, don't let him in. And then they kill you. And they're like,
Yeah.
that's crazy that happened. I don't know what we could have done differently. It's literally happened. Like, I'm not,
No, I know,
this
I
is
know.
like a notorious story. So, like, cops don't help. But what will we do without them? they're so beneficial. They shoot all the people and they don't do anything when you call for them and actually will kill you instead, especially if you're black. Oh, but you know what they need? More training. Ugh, fucking, come on. Come on.
They need more money.
They need more money for more armor so they can do more damage. Anyway.
Hey, listen, some of them are good people. Only 40% of them are bad.
I do love the meme where people will be like, 40% of cops are donating their wages to...
Look it up.
Yeah, they're like, just Google 40% and cops and it'll show you. And I fucking love that.
Me too.
It's very funny. Because if you didn't know, I'm sure you did. Anybody listening this far into the podcast knows.
Pretty weird takes about cops.
They know that we don't like cops here. But 40% of cops commit domestic violence.
40% of cops have
That
been
we know of.
recorded,
Yes.
have been reported as
Yes. So imagine
yeah.
considering the amount of footage you have of cops doing absolutely horrendous shit and not getting in trouble for it. That number's probably at least double. That number's probably,
It's probably like 120%. It's probably like 3 times.
I honestly am like, is there a cop that doesn't? Because 40% as like the recorded rate
No,
for
yeah.
a corrupt, like,
Yeah, it's
that's extremely high. Like that it has to be so bad for you to record that high of a number. You've no idea how bad it has to actually be. Because they don't like, oh, whatever. Anyway, nobody gives a shit. So the cops are like, talk to your landlord about the pipes.
It's also unclear who the landlord is.
Right.
Like,
And I'm like, one, why is the landlord not being contacted during any of this?
Right.
I know that the super is like an
Right.
arsler and
what's an arsler?
is like incapable of having keys, but is very concentrated on patching one spot on the wall. I guess where her aunt died.
Correct.
But it's taking him weeks to
Yeah.
patch it.
Takes him.
I
whole
only
movie.
put that together right this minute.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, so when I stopped myself because I started going on the rant about the pipes. When she breaks into that apartment, you can see where she didn't find evidence that anybody actually lived there. Like,
Yeah, there's no
obviously.
electricity.
There's no electricity. There is no, like, no one is there. No one comes or goes out of that apartment. The person that lived there was agoraphobic or whatever, like a hermit, never
If
left.
anybody ever lived there, I feel like
remember the
that's
tub?
the tub.
Yeah. Where,
Oh, the mummy.
yeah.
That was okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was in his place though.
No. No.
Okay.
But he was able to cover the floor with packing peanuts in the
In the amount of in that short time.
moments. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that was something that the packing peanuts, I understand that he gets a lot of things. He gets a lot of artwork. So I'm sure the implication is that he's constantly dealing with packing peanuts. But why weren't they there when she went to the apartment the first time? It would make sense if they were there and he was just unloading, whatever. Anyway, so when someone's buzzing that apartment and her dumb ass
Oh, when
answers.
she's in there, yeah.
She's like, yeah. And they're like, I have a delivery for the apartment above you, but no one's answering, which is her apartment, Jane's apartment. And
Confusing because they just say, I have a delivery for your neighbor. Can I leave
that's
it with
true.
you?"
That's true. So they're like, can we just leave it with you? And she's like, yeah, sure, whatever. So she goes down and it's this big box that's like the same height as her, maybe even taller. And it's this huge box and it's like all strapped down, like it's got like, you know, rope all around it, all this shit. Whatever. She's like, she's like, she brings it to her apartment. She opens it up and she like stabs all through it, right? Because she's convinced. I don't know. I don't know why she's doing that. Because I'm like,
I just assume she's.
yeah, but I'm like, if it's like,
it's funny.
it's funny, but also I'm like, you really want to be like, let's say it's a bunch of mice. You really want to be stabbing a bunch of little baby mice? Like, that's fucking weird. I don't know. It wouldn't be my
It was
thought.
weird.
But also, nothing is in it except for packing peanuts and an envelope. Now, there's no way that, okay, this bitch carried this entire thing up the stairs. There's no way that she was like, something alive is in here. Can't. No noise was made in this. Like, you carried this whole fucking thing up 5 flights of fucking
Right.
stairs, and you're unaware if something is inside it that moves. Like,
Also, the fact that you were able to carry it up.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, a thing that would be able to be inside this and alive, it would be a fucking fly. Like, I
Right,
don't,
right.
you're fine. But anyway, there's an envelope in it and she opens it and it's the card that says truce. And it says like truce accepted. And then like inside the card is like
right. I forgot about
pictures of her dead aunt. And like, that's fine. She's like, they killed her. I'm like, well, that's not so much what, I don't know why that's the assumption, because I don't know. Like,
It's a mixed message, so
Yeah.
it's unclear what.
like they said truce accepted, and then they showed you your dead aunt, and like, it's fine. Like, okay.
Was this after?
But she's like, I can't show you because they broke in
Oh, right.
and they hit her over the head and knocked her out, and then they turned the gas on. But they don't show how she got out of that situation, so who fucking knows how she got out of that situation? Because they just show her at the hospital, and
Right.
William Hurt shows up. So,
Oh, yeah.
right. So I'm like, okay. And she's like, I had all this evidence, but they took it. And I'm like, oh, I actually like that, because now you realize you're actually dealing with someone like that. I know that the neighbor or the pest control guy said your neighbor doesn't like you, but it just means that someone used that apartment. It doesn't necessarily mean her neighbor. You know, you're like, okay, that could, you know, but someone's like actively came into her apartment, hit her over the head, and stole her shit. I'm like, okay, it's not about I want your apartment or I want to live in your apartment or like I don't like you as this is some weird shit that's going on. This is some like we're trying to make you look crazy.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I'm like, okay, this makes it more I don't know. There was something about that was like, okay, now I get, like, it didn't seem like
You raise the stakes. Or like,
right. Because before then, it was just like, it felt like there was reason for her to get so upset. But because before, she was just like, my neighbor's writing me all this letter, writing me all these like notes. I'm like, don't know where it's coming from. They're not
Right.
signed.
Right.
You're
just
making
assuming.
assumptions.
Right.
But then when she went in, she got evidence, and then they hit her over the head and stole it. I'm like, okay,
Right.
now I know that they're actually after her.
Right.
And it's not just her apartment. Like, they're not like, we want to make you
You're
move
right.
your apartment, or we want to make you know what I
see
mean?
What you're saying.
So I was like, okay, like this feels more like, you know, you are being targeted and not like, wouldn't it suck? Doesn't it suck living here? Like, that's when I was like, maybe it's not William Hurt, because like they're actually targeting her, and it's not just like, doesn't this apartment suck? Your neighbors
Right.
are so crazy. It was like, oh, some real shit's going on, you know. And then it turns out to be Austin Pendleton, who was great.
Oh yeah, he's awesome.
playing the sweetest person ever, who's like, oh yeah, by the way, I like kill everybody that I don't like because I want everything to be quiet. And then he screams at the top of his lungs for the rest of the film.
Silence is the most beautiful noise in the world. You don't understand that. A building is an organic creature, you know? And the organism of this building, what I need is not a lot to ask for. But you have to have your own rules. Cecile,
I'm like, you really do like it quiet, don't ya? Yeah. And then Tobin Bell, we haven't talked about
No.
our boy Tobin.
Yeah.
He does love playing maintenance guys who people think kill people. That's his.
Yeah, well, was that Malice?
Yes. We talked about it just the other day.
I know. I just forget all that part about Malice.
Same, yeah.
All I remember about Malice now is Anne Bancroft
Right.
blowing my balls off with her performance that lasts 30 seconds and is a
Yeah.
masterclass.
I do like though that like I really liked I mean, I think Shelley Duvall did great.
Yeah.
And I think that she was I kind of hate that at a certain point she just stops being in it.
Yeah.
Like she's not in the what do you call it? Like I don't remember when she's like, I told you to leave Mr. Collins alone. That's the last time we see her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I would have liked if she had come in and been the one to like save her.
Or to be more obvious,
Yeah.
more directly in cahoots with him or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Or not,
Right.
or just more explicitly like enabling.
Right. Or like she actually heeds his warnings and that's why she is like, you gotta leave him alone. Like you can't
Right.
because she's like, have to leave him alone. And you know, you see it as like her being a nitpicky old biddy.
Right.
But she's actually like, girl,
Right.
we gotta stick together.
Right. Right.
But it is funny when she's like, she's calling the 911 because Tobin Bell's washing red paint off of him. I guessed that immediately. I was like, he's painting because the girl was like on the bed, like, and I was like, she doesn't look like she's covered in blood. She looks like she's laying on red fucking sheets,
Yes.
and they don't look bloody. They look sad.
Oh, I didn't even think that. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
And he's like washing, and she's like calling 911, and
Well, she calls 911 because they make eye contact, and then he starts getting dressed and is headed over, right? Or is that a different time?
that's the same time. But she starts calling 911. I thought because she thinks he killed someone because she's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know. And then someone knocks on her door and she assumes it's him, but it's Shelley Duvall and she's like, can I have some sugar? And it's and she's like, oh yeah, sure, come in. And I'm like, this is great because there's no explanation. She just has a fucking bowl and she's like, can I have some sugar?
Yeah.
And I'm like, please tell me you want
Also,
that much sugar.
Exactly. It's a huge bowl. It's like a mixing bowl.
I'm like, and it's ceramic, which is also
Yeah, well,
not
right.
a mixing bowl.
Right, right.
It's just like, what is going on? And she's like, can I have some sugar? And I'm like, please fill the bowl with sugar. And then it just like cuts to another scene. And I'm like, what the fuck happened? She was on the phone with 911 and just like goes away.
Well, and that's why the cops never believe her after that.
Yeah.
Every time the cops show up.
They're like, didn't you call almost the other night? And
Yeah.
you didn't report nothing? First of all,
As if
like,
the cops
know.
have their shit together that
well,
much.
they don't have their shit together like that. But also, they always come out. If you call 911 and you're like, never mind, they're like, okay, we're going to send someone out anyway. Like,
Yeah.
they don't just not come out because you said never mind or you hung up. Like, that's not really a thing. So, yeah, whatever. But yeah, she's like convinced that like Tobin Bell's like a total piece of shit. He ends up saving her life at some point.
Well, and he turns out one day she comes home and she can't get her key to work.
Yeah.
So she has to call a locksmith.
And it ends up
Turns
being
out,
him.
womp womp, it's him.
But I actually liked. I knew that they were trying to make him, you know, the scary guy. But I love that he was like, hey, we saw each other the other night. And she's like, well, huh? And he's like, yeah. He's like, we made eye contact. She's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm like, he's being so chill about it. He's just like, yeah. He's like, you didn't call the cops on me, huh? And she's like, what? Why would I do that? I'm like, this guy's great. And then like he gives her keys and then he puts one in his pocket and she's like, was that a key to my apartment? Which I was like, okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm like, at least, and he's like, yeah. And he's like, the super's not allowed to have a spare key, which is like what is said repeatedly, but like no, like, but what I did like about that is that she freaks out because she looks in his apartment and she sees the super in Tobin Bell's apartment holding a
giant ass ring of keys.
And he's just like he's like, yeah. And she's like, oh my God, like he's in cahoots or whatever. But then at the very end,
I love that.
You see that
shot.
That Tobin Bell's actually a painter, and he has all these paintings. So like all the weird shit that she's seen in his apartment, he's like just been painting stuff.
Right.
And he has a picture of the super holding a bunch of keys, and it's so cute because he's just like really happy holding keys because he's not allowed to have them. I was like, that's so sweet.
And since he's a locksmith, he has he's probably not giving him keys to
he's
go to
not
anything.
literally giving him keys. He's just letting him hold like a ring of like, probably like whatever. So it was really cute. I was like, that's so sweet. So Tobin Bell wins. Tobin Bell and Shelley Duvall are the best characters in this movie that didn't get enough screen time. Why the end, like there's a couple scene, like there's like a scene where he's like looking through the binoculars, but it's very clear that he's like looking down.
Yeah, not
Like
into
it's
her
not
apartment.
like he's like they're not, because his apartment is like
below,
across the street and like below
a couple floors
hers.
down.
Yeah, a floor or two below hers, so she can see in his apartment. But his binoculars are pointed down, so you know that he's looking at something else. But like it implies that like the way she acts is like she thinks he's looking in her apartment. I'm like, girl, you're not that special. He doesn't give a shit. And I guess we're supposed to deduce that he's like painting, like what he's.
Well, because the actual scene is he's doing a painting or a sketch, I think. Actually,
yeah. Oh yeah,
of the exterior of that building.
Yeah, yeah.
But then we see that he's got paintings of everyone else in the building,
including Jane. Why? I do love that though. Whenever it's like, oh, I'm a painter, and then they're like, they paint like everybody. I'm like, stop. Oh God. This is why anytime that I'm like, I'm an artist, people are like, oh, you paint? I'm like, no, I don't. No, never painted in my life. I don't paint.
You never. You learn pretty quickly never to tell people that you're any kind of creative. I mean, I hate that term anyway.
I guess I don't learn that.
Well, I don't talk to people, so it helps. Immediately, I was like, oh, why do I get Hitchcocky vibes? And I'm like, oh, because we already have like a rear window scenario. And this felt unusual for me. I'm like, I noticed like almost immediately after we meet like 4 people, I'm like, oh, it's letting us. Everyone is presented as though they may have ulterior motives.
Yeah.
Clearly, William Hurt, Scott Baggs has possibly made a deal with the devil.
Right. Yeah.
He's sketchy. He's really weird towards Jane.
Yeah.
Her coworker.
What the fuck? Their entire chemistry is just like her being like, "Can I
help you
with
it's
something?"
so good.
And she's like, "Yeah, that'd be great. Actually, I love help." And she's like, "Okay." And then she's like, "You want me to help you more since you're so overwhelmed?" And she's like, "Fuck you, bitch! Get the fuck out of here!" And she's like, "Oh, okay, sure." And I'm like, "What's happening?"
It's so good.
Crazy.
I love that part.
Yeah,
and then,
I like that she's like, "Okay." I'm like. And then she takes over or whatever.
And her first time in the building when we meet Martha Stewart and the super who's just like banging on the wall.
Give me your
wearing a
keys
wife
right
beater.
now.
Yeah.
No one told me you were gonna move in here.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's
him, and then we get Tobin Bell and fucking everybody. It's so I appreciate that. I thought that was well done. Like it felt very. It's not subtle, but it's also not
Right.
cartoonish.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it is kind of,
Yeah.
but it felt right
Yeah.
for the tone. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
It wasn't like it was done convincingly enough that I'm like, oh yeah, I could see any one of these people being
Right. Yeah.
shitty or crazy or
Right.
vindictive enough to fuck with her.
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
so I like that
Yeah.
about it. Even Shelley Duvall, you know, like
Yeah.
as
I was
things
almost
as,
hoping
as,
it was her.
as things escalate. I love when she's like, you talked to the Koreans?
I know. She's like, first the police and now the Koreans.
Yeah.
Like, and I do like that she's like, that scene's good because I feel like they're both like, Jane is like, at the store, they told me that they weren't delivering groceries here anymore. And she's like, why are you asking people at the store about
Right.
her? And she's like, no, I didn't.
They just told me.
They just told me. And she's like, oh my God, what are you? She was like,
Yeah.
you're weird. You just keep
Yeah.
causing trouble. And she's like, you're so. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, they're both right in this. Cause it's like, she's just like, I do like though, like it's very weird because Jane seems to think that like Martha Stewart is like her confidant, so she'll go and she's
Yeah,
like, "Hey,
right.
I need to talk to you about this," and she's like, "What the fuck, dude? You're being straight up crazy, and you don't listen to me when I tell you
Right.
shit. So why are you talking to me?"
Right.
And she's just like, "Okay." And I'm like, "What?" It's like everybody's
I borrow some
response.
sugar?
Yeah, everybody's response to being called out, and this is just being like, "All right, that's fine." Like what? Let's chill. I get it. Anyway, see you later. Like what? And like, yeah, William Hurt. I think this is why I don't. William Hurt and her get in an argument about plates, and I'm on his side.
what?
Plates.
Plates.
I'm on his side on this because she's like,
Yeah.
you have to wipe them off. Like they're doing the dishes and she's washing the plates and he's like wiping them off. I didn't actually know this. No one told me this. I didn't know this was a thing. She's like, you have to wipe them off or they streak. And he's like, I am wiping them off. She's like, yeah, but you're not wiping them off enough because they're starting to streak. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, who gives a shit? And she's like, I do. She's like, they're my plates or whatever. And they start getting in an argument. She's like, why do you give a shit about the plates so much? And he's like, obviously it's not about plates. I don't know why you think this is about plates. And I'm like, yeah, this feels like something I would do. I'm like, yeah, I'm on his side in this. Like, I'd be like, you want me to wipe your plates totally clean so they don't have streaks because you have so many fucking guests over? You don't want them to see your streaky fucking plates? Have you seen the walls? Bro, you have mealworms in your fucking bathtub. Fix yourself. Like, I would be like, no, we're not doing. I would not. I'd be like, you can dry your own shit off. I'll wash them, you dry them. Like, I'm not doing this shit. Like, I wouldn't handle that very well.
Okay.
Because I think that's stupid.
It is.
No offense to these white women out there that want streakless plates. Fucking. I don't know what's this. No, but I was like,
Girls,
yeah,
let's be serious. Let's talk.
Ladies.
Let's have real talk.
Ladies.
Streaking is an issue.
right. I'm like,
That's on period.
because he's like, this is clearly not about plates, and she's like, it's not, and I'm like, okay, it was about plates for you. You weren't picking at something. I'm like, you thought this was actually about plates from the get go. Like, I'm like, girl, you're stupid. Because who's gonna?
Interesting take.
I know. I'm not a good person, but like, And he's like, I'm leaving because I can't deal with this. And I'm like, no, that's fair. I'm like, he's removing himself from the situation. He's frustrated. I'm like, nice. He's doing everything right. I'm like, he's pissed about other things. He's not going to be able to dry plates.
He's like, why won't you move in with me?
Yeah. I know. I do like that I do think that that was like a very funny thing to me because I'm like, this is such an unbelievable, because why that seemed so weird is that like, it didn't, I don't want to say he didn't seem to be around enough or to be, he didn't seem controlling enough.
Okay.
To want her to move in to the degree
Right. That he
that
performs.
he would, right, with it being because he wanted to control everything about her.
Uh-huh.
So that's where I was like, okay, because they're like, she's like, oh, he got me a TV. I don't like TV. I'm like, okay, but his job is television and you're not moving in with him. So he wants you to watch him on TV. I mean, it's shitty that he wants to put it in your bedroom. That's weird. But like,
Or is this the only place it would fit? That's what they say.
that's so weird.
Or like that's the only place where there's the hookups or
Oh,
whatever.
okay.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
makes
remember.
sense. That
There's
makes
some
sense.
alibi for it.
But like, I'm like, okay, but you actually said you didn't want to move in with him, and his job is a weatherman, and that's how you guys met. Is that he was a weatherman, and you were like doing like interior decorating for him or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if it was for his job or what.
I
I'm
don't
not
recall.
sure. But like if it's for his office or something like that, I don't know. But like, I'm like, okay, I don't think it's that. Like the way, like she's like, I don't like TV, and he's like, okay, what do you want me to do about it? She's like, I don't know, get it out of here. And I'm like, she doesn't seem like she likes you.
Yeah.
She does, and this is where I'm like, it's not so much about like
No,
she's
yeah.
being controlling. She doesn't like you, and she doesn't like the things that you like.
There's
or the
no,
things
yeah,
that you do.
That is
So,
that is a whole. Is that there's no motivate. There's no real
yeah,
convincing reason for her to stay with him.
yes,
Much less want to move in with him.
Yeah.
She doesn't need him. She's got this apartment. She's got a
right.
career.
right.
There's just no.
You don't like each other.
You can find some D somewhere else.
They're not even. They don't even have the D.
So you're attracted
the whole time.
You're attracted to older men?
You like older men. They don't even. The D doesn't make an appearance at all.
It's a D-list film.
Yes. This isn't
Although she's
broadcast nude.
quasi-nude.
Yeah, she is quasi nude. Yeah, she does. She does have a.
Some open robe. Can I open the kimono?
What's that from?
I feel like it's Fudge Packer. What's his name? Your guy
Todd Packer?
Todd Packer. Wow, yeah.
You mean Doofer?
Yeah.
You said Fudge Packer, so that's what got me there.
I think at some point he says, "Can I open the kimono with you?"
The character of Todd Packer from The Office, if I have trouble remembering his name, I'm like Doofer. That's especially when I first started watching The Office, I was like asking Keith, I was like, who plays Doofer? And he's like, who? I was like, I don't know. His name was like Doofer or something. And it took a while. And then he was like Todd Packer. And I was like, that's it. Doofer. My brain was like, Doofer. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he plays the character named Doofer in something else. I don't know.
His real name is Keckner. Does that help?
Of sure it is. Of sure it is, Keith.
Of sure.
Would you recommend?
I would.
Really?
Yeah. This is so far the one I actually sincerely enjoyed the most so far this month.
Yeah. I'm very.
It's a nice little suspense thriller.
Yeah, I don't think it was.
It's not perfect, obviously.
It's not perfect. I think.
It's no hide and seek, which we watched recently, which is a perfect little thriller.
Yeah, it didn't make me as mad as it did the first time I watched it. I will be honest, but I think some of that was because I watched it with you. Fucking Elizabeth Shue flying out a window, though. That was
real good.
Yeah, we watched that a couple times. Just so. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I would. It's got an aesthetic about it that I appreciate.
Yeah.
It's definitely got
It's got
that
a vibe.
Yeah, it's got that 90s New York vibe that I wish still existed.
It called to mind single white female a little bit.
Yeah,
for me.
yeah.
It's cleaner. Single white female is kind of grimy in a weird way. You know, like it's maybe their apartment.
It's
or
because you see Steven Weber's dong in it.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That is why.
It's dirtier, seedier, smaller.
Plus, I was thinking, isn't Bridget Fonda's character interior decorator? Is that what she does?
No, she builds like websites or something.
My bad. That's right. Web design. 1996 or whatever.
It's like 90. She has that like Palm Pilot that's a laptop. You know, she's just like bringing it everywhere. It requires like
it's the size of a fax machine.
The monitor is the size of an iPhone, and the like hardware and plug-in is the size of a fucking
whole
television.
Dell.
Hold on, let me buy airline tickets.
I know.
Click, 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 click,
Let me log on.
Oh, that was a good.
But come on, you know, what is it?
Did we watch
War Games, right? That has a modem.
Wow, yeah.
He has to put the phone on the cradle to.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Did we watch Single White Female for the pod, right?
Correct, yeah.
Oh, my God. That's crazy.
You probably would not have gotten me to watch it otherwise.
Yeah.
Would you recommend?
Would I recommend? Yeah. I don't think it would be. I think if you like the kind of like 90s mystery whodunit.
It's a little bit of a throwback feel. You know, like I think it's meant to engender, evoke Hitchcock and like kind of a noir vibe.
Right. Yeah. I think
but it doesn't go super hard.
Yeah, I think it's a film that's more of a vibe than it is a story.
A tight.
But if you it's
a tight
hard.
thriller.
I'll be honest. Pre finding out William Hurt was a bag of shit, I probably would have been like all about this movie. Post, I'm like, well, it does have William Hurt, so it's a little bit of a stinker. So I'm a little tainted on that because what a bag of.
Well, I think the selling points are Shelley Duvall.
Shelley Duvall, yep.
Juliette Lewis does a solid job.
I think Juliette Lewis is good.
It's not over the top. She's believable.
Austin Pendleton actually gets a role.
Yeah, and he's great. He's perfect.
A
Pitch
speaking
perfect.
role that's,
I was just thinking about it. His career, anytime...
If you like Saw, you can see Jigsaw in something that isn't Saw.
Saw Origins. Well, this is... The
Saw Origins, the beginning.
Collection. Includes this and Malice. Jigsaw Origins, I guess. Like whichever horrible...
There is a movie called Jigsaw.
Whichever Nightmare on Elm Street movie it is, where it's like... His mom was a nun. Freddy Krueger's mom was a nun who got...
R-worded, yeah.
Gang essayed by... Jesus Christ.
I do love when they're love when they're like, you know what, let's just I love that it's like, I mean, I do believe that, like, you might treat your kid a little different if you were forced to have them from a bad experience.
Yeah.
But I do love that it's like, this happened to your mom and you're suffering for it. I think the mom suffered more.
No.
Whatever happened, the mom suffered more.
No, that's always that's a classic. Like
fucking Maligno. That's why I hated that movie. That movie is 1000% a fucking like abortion is evil. Like I wanted to abort you because
But that seems like an argument for abortion.
Right. I know, right? But it's like the reason why his mom apologizes.
I know. Yeah, fuck that movie up and down all day long.
Like,
I'll never. That is, if nothing else, James Wan will never be able to make up for that.
yeah,
for me,
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
that's a
Yeah.
original sin.
Yeah. Original sin, yeah. Let's just say this is better than Malignant. I mean,
Yeah.
I will say it doesn't have just someone walking backwards. This and Tenet, my two favorite walking backwards
If you
movies.
want to get Z on your side and have somebody walking backwards,
Malignant, Tenet,
Michael Jackson.
I guess I just hate people walking backwards. You walk backwards, I'm out. Anyway,
what is more terrifying than someone walking in reverse? You cannot conceive of an evil more.
My favorite thing is when it's like it's a horror movie and it's like over CG'd and you just hear the bone cracking thing in the elbow.
God, this is the thing we've been catching up on furthering our watching of Conjuring and Conjuring verse movies.
You finally watched all the Conjuring movies, like the Conjuring, not like all of them. Yeah. We're working on Annabelle. La Llorona. We gotta watch that.
We watched The Nun 2.
Yeah, we watched all the Nun movies. Yeah,
I like Devil Made Me Do It. That's actually probably my favorite of all of them.
I like the Devil.
Definitely my favorite of the Conjurings.
I liked the Nun 2 more than you did. I think I liked the Nun 2 more than I liked the Nun. Partly because there wasn't the Frenchie weird, her and Frenchie making out.
Yeah,
the kiss
but they
of
still had
life.
to have him be a love interest or whatever.
That's fine. It wasn't.
I didn't need that.
I didn't care about that, but it didn't take away from like. I don't know. I fucking when she's on fire and she's just like howling.
Yeah,
I was like that. I was like, yeah, that's what. So I was like, all right, this movie's pretty good. Spoiler, I guess. Spoiler for The Nun 2 during this talk of the
fourth
movie
floor
that was made 25 years ago. Yeah. But yeah, I guess I'd recommend. Yeah. William Hurt.
The fifth character is the stairwell in this movie.
I think the fifth character is the hole in the wall that Artie Lang spends the entire film patching up.
All right, fair enough.
The fifth character.
Yeah, you're not rid of me. No, you're not rid of me. I'll make you lick my injuries. I'm gonna twist your head off, see. Tell you, say, don't you wish you never met her, 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 don't you wish you never met her. Lick my legs and I'm on fire. Lick my legs of desire. Lick my legs and I'm on fire. Lick my legs of desire.
That's on period.